So I'd like to start off just sort of, as far as the Internet of Things, could we kind of just start with the term, what it means, and is it a useful term to be called an Internet of Things company, and is it a term that we'll be even using in a few years? Is it something that, how should we approach this term in the first place?
So I'll give a little history on the term, because a friend of mine actually coined the term, Kevin Ashton. He was working on RFID technology, and not the RFID you have in your iPhones or some Android phones, but actually more for commercial purposes, as they sought to add RFID tags to every packaged consumer good to replace the barcodes. And the idea was to add some intelligence, some connectivity to things that did not have intelligence or connectivity. And I think that the consumer side of the business sort of took on that term as some way to describe what does it mean now in a world of inexpensive computing and ubiquitous connectivity to take objects that perhaps didn't have that capability previously and add some software. And I think it's important to note that behind every hardware company is a software company, right? And we just put it into some kind of silicon and make that device hopefully better than it was before. So that's my very generic description. Maybe you guys want to add to that?
Yeah. So oh, that one's loud. Yeah, I think it's a fine phrase. I know a lot of people get fired up about the overuse of Internet of Things. I think we have to label it with something, so sounds fine to me. But I think what I see is the consumer doesn't care about the Internet of Things, right? It's an industry term for us technologists, and what the consumer cares about is solving a problem, and that's one thing that Life360, August, and Tile do a great job at. Customers don't want to run around with keys. It's kind of ironic that we sit next to each other here. He's trying to get rid of keys, and I'm putting tiles on keys.
And I'm a tile user. I have it on all
yes.
of my keys and other things.
But both solve a real problem, right? And as more connectivity happens with these types of products, more becomes enabled. And I think what becomes possible with the Internet of Things is what's really exciting, and why we're here talking about it. So.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to say the more controversial stuff. I actually hate the term IoT. It confuses the hell out of me, and I think it confuses consumers as well. Because it's very generic, and it actually represents a lot of different value props, a lot of different things that consumers can do with their life, right? So the way we think about the world here at Life360, and this is more on the consumer side, and I know there's also a very big enterprise side of it, is, well, there's stuff around, the smart home security, which is big. That's a big vertical. It's growing very fast. It's super interesting, and this is where the money is at. And then there's a lot of new stuff growing in the wearable device kind of world, tracking, finding lost stuff. Tile is doing an amazing job there, and that's sort of very interesting. And then there's a lot of interesting stuff happening with connecting all those things and having the data, sort of leveraging the data to automate and really personalize and make people's lives better. And sort of, I feel that when we say that phrase IoT, we're sort of missing the point. We're missing like the actual use cases and the actual like why. Why would consumers actually be interested in it? And then when you start drilling down to actual, you can actually automate, your lock, and you can provide access to people, and it's going to be smart. It's going to just make your life easier. I think that's where we're having the real meaningful conversation with consumers. So.
Yeah, just touching on a couple of the points that you guys brought up. I think as kind of we move forward, silicon's just going to get embedded in everything, from clothes to furniture to consumer appliances. So it starts to become, it's not really you don't need a term for the Internet of Things. It's just an inevitability. And now what's the really interesting thing is the data that we talked about, the use cases, both on the business side with machinery, the fact that now you can analyze machine data in real time, crank it and push out actually valuable insights is extremely powerful. Farms, right? That's a huge use case. A lot of these things, it doesn't need a label called Internet of Things. It's just, it could be smart whatever. There's so many different labels that you can put on it, and I don't necessarily have a problem with it, with the label of Internet of Things, but it doesn't really capture the full kind of, ubiquity of it. It doesn't say like, look, everything we do is going to be connected, it's going to be real time, it's going to be analyzed, it's going to be accessible via a software layer on top. So that's kind of my concern with the term, but I don't really have anything personal against it.